All right, welcome to the Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a word you've definitely heard, but maybe don't fully get: Nirvana. You know, we all have this picture in our heads, a kind of blissful heaven, or maybe just, poof, nothingness. But what if I told you both of those ideas are completely off the mark? Yeah, we're going to dig into what the Buddha actually meant, and it's all about finding a path right between two huge philosophical extremes.
So let's just dive right in with the big one, the question we're all here for. What is nirvana, really?
Okay, so when you hear that word, what pops into your head? For most of us, right, it's either this amazing, blissful heaven and eternal paradise, or, the total opposite, just complete, empty nothingness. But here's the kicker. Those two very popular ideas, they're actually the two extremes the Buddha was trying to steer clear of.
So let's take a look at that first extreme. It's a philosophical view called eternalism. So you gotta picture the world back then. The whole philosophical scene was basically a big debate between two opposing camps. You had the eternalists, who believed that there's some core part of you, a soul, a self, whatever you want to call it, and that it lives on forever after you die. And then, on the other side of the ring, you had the annihilationists. Their whole thing was, nope, when you die, that's it. You're just gone, wiped out, completely. All right, so to steer away from that eternal paradise idea, the Buddha's teaching had to do something pretty radical first. It had to totally redefine what we even mean by pleasant or sukha. And this quote is everything. It just flips our whole idea of happiness on its head. It's basically saying that the stuff we spend our lives chasing, thinking it'll make us happy, well, from a deeper perspective, that's actually a form of suffering. And this is how that shift in meaning works. The teaching kind of breaks down pleasure into different levels. You start at level 1, pleasant physical feelings, a good meal, a warm day. Then you go deeper to level 2, pleasant mental feelings, like the kind of calm you might get in deep meditation. But then it goes to a whole other level. The ultimate pleasure, the real sukha, isn't about getting a good feeling at all. It's about the complete, total absence of all suffering. Think about that. It's not adding happiness, it's removing suffering. Okay, so if nirvana isn't some eternal happy place, let's look at the other side of the coin. What about just annihilating a self? And this is where things get a little tricky, right? Because if you say nirvana is the complete end of suffering, well, doesn't that sound an awful lot like just being wiped out? It sounds a lot like that annihilation view, doesn't it? Well, the difference is it's super subtle, but it's also absolutely huge, and it all boils down to one tiny change in wording. Check this out. The annihilationist says, I will not exist. The Buddha's reframe is, it will not exist. You see that? The shift from I to it? This is way more than just grammar, people. Taking the I out of the picture changes everything. And that little change is what leads us straight to the Buddha's brilliant, radical solution, the middle way. The key that unlocks this whole thing is a concept called Anatta, which means non-self. And the idea is pretty mind-bending. It's that there was never a permanent, solid, unchanging you in the first place. That feeling of I that we all have, it's really just a label, a shortcut we use for this constantly changing jumble of thoughts, feelings, and body parts. People actually accused the Buddha of being an annihilationist to his face. And this quote here, this was his response. He didn't say, no, nothing ends. Instead, he got super specific about what it is that ends. And here it is, the main takeaway. Nirvana isn't about getting rid of a self. You can't destroy something that was never a solid thing to begin with. No, it's about the process of suffering, that whole merry-go-round of craving and wanting and never being satisfied. It's about that process just stopping, coming to a complete final end. Okay, I know this is a bit abstract, so to really help this idea land, there's this fantastic analogy that's used in the old texts. Just picture a simple candle flame. Now, when you blow it out, where does the flame go? Seriously, think about it. Does it go north, south? Is it hiding in a box somewhere? Of course not. The answer is it doesn't go anywhere. See, asking where did the flame go is the wrong question entirely, because the flame was never a thing. It was a process. It only existed because the right conditions were there. The fuel from the wick, the oxygen in the air. The moment you take one of those conditions away, poof, the process stops. The flame isn't destroyed or annihilated, it just stops happening. And that right there is the perfect illustration of the difference.
Annihilationism says there's a thing called a self, and it gets destroyed. The middle way says there was never a thing, only a process, the process of suffering. And once you remove the causes, that process just stops. It ceases.
So that leaves us with a pretty deep final thought to chew on. If this whole teaching is right, if there really is no permanent I to be lost or destroyed, then what exactly are we so afraid of when we think about death? What is it we're afraid of losing? That's a question worth sitting with for a while.